murderer who killed the 2 young children, a white man. Will you listen to what I'm saying? I literally said the broken nuclear family, both black families and white families, that murderer.
Nina Turner joined Chris Cuomo on his show NewsNation to engage in a debate with far-right MAGA commentator Liz Wheeler. The topic is crime in the United States, and crime specifically based on race. Why don't we watch clips of Chris Cuomo talking with Nina Turner and Liz Wheeler, and I will share my opinion as I do, and then I want to know what you think in the comments. Let's check it out.
Let's ask two better minds, conservative podcaster Liz Wheeler and former Ohio Democratic State Senator Nina Turner. Now, again, Liz, NewsNation is not on the naughty list, okay? We've been covering the story, not the way or for the reasons that I see a lot in your universe covering it, but what do you believe the fix is here?
Well, first, Chris, thanks for having me on the show. Let's talk about why this has become such a hot button topic and why you use the word weaponized. I think it is a hot button topic because it demonstrates how politics have led to this situation. This was not an arbitrary crime. This was not a crime that was inevitable. It's not like Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says you can expect crime in big cities. No, I don't accept that. The majority of the American people don't accept that. What we saw here in this gruesome, heinous murder of this beautiful, innocent Ukrainian war refugee by this deranged black man, we saw the Democrat Party's policies in action. In the state of North Carolina in 2020, in June of 2020, the governor, Roy Cooper, signed an executive order 145, called Racial Equity in Criminal Justice Task Force. It established a task force with the intent of reducing the percentage of black men who are incarcerated compared to the percentage of white men who are incarcerated. This is not how you fix a problem. This is nothing but racialism that results in black people who commit crimes being let off easy in order to tamper with the statistics and make it seem like there's less of a disproportionate difference between the number of black men in prison and the number of white men in prison.
You do know, not to be in like a numbers festival, and I want to bring in Nina, but as a cultural dynamic, black men and white men are arrested at about the same rates, but then the rate of black arrests go up when you get into certain types of crimes. The percentage of people who get prosecuted is disproportionate in terms of black people, specifically young men, and the amount of people who go to prison and do time is disproportionate. But I don't think that's what this is about. I think this is about who wants to see what the problem is and what the right fix is. And the fix I'm hearing from you guys, Liz, is to kill this guy and punish the judge.
No, I don't believe in the death penalty. No, don't put words in my mouth. I don't believe in the death penalty. What I believe in is I believe in justice.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm repeating what's been said by the predominance of people on the right. Yeah, the MAGA world is saying kill this guy. It's all over the place.
Let me explain the problem to you. The problem is that we do have systemic racism in our criminal justice system. I know that's something the left often says, and it's true, not in the way that the left tries to claim. It's true because there's systemic racism against white people in the criminal justice system. This murderer, yes, he had schizophrenia. That doesn't take away from the fact that he committed a gruesome, grisly murder that we watched before our very eyes.
Yeah.
This man was let off. I mean, he was arrested 14 times. And the example you gave in the monologue was the one time he abused calling 911.
It was the most recent arrest. It was the most recent
one, but you neglected to mention all the other times, his robberies and his assault of females.
I know, but Liz, if you're going to attack the judge for what she did, I'll bring you in, Nina. But hold on, Liz. If you're going to attack the judge,
want to prosecute him.
No. Here's why. The most recent one was a misdemeanor 911 call where he was evidencing being crazy. You're going after the wrong judge. You should have gone after the judge before him.
What I said.
After he got out for the burglary and he assaulted his sister. That judge should be the one who's reviewed. I think they're using this one because it's a black female.
It's the Democratic Party at large that needs to be held accountable for their restorative justice policies. It is the fact of the matter is black people make up 13% of our population here in the United States, and yet they make up 50% of murder convictions in our country. There is a disproportionate difference in the number.
Let me bring in Nina on that. Let me bring on Nina on that. Well, Liz, you made a bunch of points. Let me bring her in, and then I'll come back to you. Nina, weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, First of all, it's an immense tragedy what happened to Zaruska. And anybody who would say that it wasn't, that could have been any of us. Mm-hmm. But to racialize this manner in the way that my colleague is doing is absolutely wrong. Your monologue, Chris, was spot on. This is a systemic failure for all of us. The fact that we do not treat mental health, and not all people who have mental health challenges turn violent.
True.
But this is about how we spend money in this country when it comes to people who have these types of propensities. The reason why we can laser focus on Brown in terms of mental health is based on what his mother said, based on the 911 call. And this was not a hate crime. We can racialize it if it was a hate crime, but this is not determined to be a hate crime. And the fact that Black men are overrepresented in the prison system in the United States of America is a problem. That does not mean that we cannot deal with Brown. We are taking from, in this conversation, cheapening what happened to this young woman. And she was pretty and she was white. If she was ugly and white, would her life not matter just as much? This makes absolutely no sense, Chris. I am enraged by it. Do we let most mass murders are white men? Do we label and say that we want to lock up and kill all white men in the same manner that some on the extreme left and extreme right are betraying this? And Liz, you and I should have a sidebar conversation about this, because the way that this is being framed, and I'm open to it, is not the right framing. Chris, you are on it. Yes, he should be punished for this crime. The family should be lifted up. It should not be politicized in the way that it is being politicized. The system failed Zaruska, and the system failed all of us. And there is a way to get the fix, and justice will prevail in this case. Hopefully, this man did something heinous. He has the answer to this. Chris, my final point.
Okay, a couple of things before Nina Turner goes on. Liz Wheeler, very polished. Clearly like able to sort of steamroll and sound reasonable and, you know, making sort of sensical sounding arguments. But if you listen carefully, there are some kernels in there that give away the hand. Namely, the one I want to point out is that there is a bias against white people in the judicial system, right? I mean, there are some MAGA talking points that, if not strictly the kind of great replacement theory, it's this reverse persecution, that it's actually, there's a war on white people in this country. Actually, there's inverse racism. People are racist and systems are racist against white people on the radical left or doing, right? Do an internet search. I just did, it took me 3 seconds. Do just a quick, whatever search engine you want. In the federal system, Black citizens have been 20 times more likely than white citizens to be sentenced to life without parole for nonviolent crimes. All right, that's what I found. Just a quick internet search took me 3 seconds. Now, if that's not a systemic bias against Black people, right? When Liz Wheeler is claiming that the bias is against white people, come on. In terms of what Nina Turner's saying, I mean, what we see from these far-right MAGA types like Liz Wheeler is that everything's about punishment. There's this enormous focus on punishment, and force. Nothing is ever going to get to the root causes of crime, or what do we do to fix this, or what might be causing this or contributing to this. It's like, how draconian can we make the punishment? For example, in this case, in where the guy murdered a woman on the train, it seems fairly clear from what we know that this was a acute mental health issue, and and I think that that's tragic, obviously. But I think when we hear Liz Wheeler and MAGA and Republicans and the like talking about it, they don't want to do anything about mental health. They don't want to spend any more money on it. They don't want to take it seriously unless it's a white perp. If it's a white perp, white male perpetrator, then we're like, oh, well, this poor guy had mental health issues, right? If it's a In this case, if it's a black man that commits the crime, he's a violent black man, and she's a pretty white woman, right? And we go straight to these buzzwords again and again and again. And I think this also pertains to the Charlie Kirk thing a little bit. You know, the rush to declare that whomever shot Charlie Kirk had to be a radical leftist. And, you know, the evidence is still unfolding now that they've caught the guy. But there's actually some indications that he might have been into right-wing circles and maybe a groyper and maybe even further right. We don't know. I mean, the point of that particular one is that we still don't know. So let's not rush to judgment on it. The point is that this kind of political violence is accelerating. It's horrible. It has to stop, regardless of whether the victim of it is Democrat or Republican or MAGA or quote unquote radical left or whatever, right?
Who was a paranoid schizophrenic. He killed his father, who was sitting in his favorite chair after work, blew his brains out, and then hunted down my aunt in their house and killed her too. The treatment that he needed as an adult, because it's hard to get, and it should be hard. We shouldn't just be able to say anybody needs to be put away, but at the same time, to find the balance and the compassion. Any Democrat that is using this to politicize this is wrong. Any Republican who is doing that is wrong. Chris, you are right on. What is the fix?
Liz, I'm going to give you the last word on this with one, I believe, prediction. This guy's not going to stay in trial. He's going to be found not competent. So forget about the death penalty. He's not going to stay in trial. He's not competent for trial. The Constitution is very clear on it. I don't think there's any chance he passes a competency exam. So what do you want to see in order to bring events like this to a minimum?
I want to see two things. I want to see critical race theory, also known as racial equity and criminal justice, removed from our justice system. There are 23 states plus the District of Columbia in the United States that have such initiatives. You know, the word equity does not mean equality. It means forcing an equal outcome. So a racial equity and criminal justice initiative means forcing an equal percentage of black people and white people based on the color of their skin. That's not justice. That's injustice.
Cuomo's going to jump in here and tackle that, and as well he should. But I just want to jump in as well and be like, this is the aggrievement that we see so much from the right. That is not justice. And they're coming for us. And what about the white people? And what about my rights? Right? I mean, that's the kind of root level engine that's driving some of this stuff, that is this presumption of aggrievement, that they're coming for your wives, they're coming for your kids. Let's make America great again, back when they knew their place and they weren't taking our jobs and we didn't have to put up with them and listen to them. Obviously, I'm elaborating a little bit there, but more even than any of the specific things that she said, I want to call out that kind of like, there's a kind of a logic hash about critical race theory in the legal system, where she's Frankenstein together a couple of terms and then sort of, like with the tariff calculation, sort of slapped equals unfair to us. And that is at the core of a lot of these talking heads on the right. Vehemence.
So it doesn't happen anywhere. Nobody does ratios of race in terms of who goes to jail.
That's exactly what is. That's exactly why people are so outraged by this.
It's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
The reason people are so outraged by this is because you're gaslighting the American public. You're gaslighting the public, telling us that this is not injustice.
You find me a jurisdiction.
And then Liz Wheeler is doing another classic thing here, which is accuse your opponent of the crime you are committing. So Liz Wheeler accusing Chris Cuomo and Nina Turner of gaslighting the American public, right? The left is gaslighting the American public. Look, I think politicians on both sides of the aisle have told half-truths and spin and outright lies, and that's politics, and it's gross, and I don't condone it, but that's not new. I do think this kind of accusation of institutional gaslighting really began. I mean, it depends on where you drop the pin. I mean, you could go back to Nixon, all the way up through Reagan and Dick Cheney and that administration with Bush Jr. But it has taken all new levels with the Trump administration and Fox News as a propaganda machine, and now even new outlets like One America News or whatever that are even further to the right, and it's state television, where Kellyanne Conway coined alternate facts, right? So the official, not just sanctioning, but active creation of an upside-down reality, an alternate reality in which all of this aggrievement is real and founded, and data that we can look at that is inherently nonpartisan is fake news if it doesn't support what this aspiring authoritarian wants it to.
Liz, I know people say it. I know people argue for it. I totally get what you're saying. But that is not the practice. You find me a single jurisdiction in any major population center where they decide who goes to judge. They decide. Hold on a second.
Declining to prosecute based on the color of the person's skin. That's exactly.
There's no question that has happened. But nobody has adjusted their policy so that when they're deciding who goes to jail, they make sure that the racial percentages are balanced out. That is nowhere. It would never be constitutional.
That's the intent of a racial
there's a difference. There's a difference between what people want and what happens.
It's not.
I get it, Liz.
But the second part of your question was, what do we want to do to fix this? The second part, and this is the part that I find very interesting, because when people say, the system is broken, yeah, the system is broken, and the system did fail to Carlos Brown, just like it failed Irina Zarutska. No one's denying that. But what's not being discussed is why young black men are committing higher numbers of crime. And the answer to that is not moving around dollars. It's not the way government spends. It's not more welfare programs or restorative justice pipelines. The answer to that lies in the brokenness.
Are white men who are mainly the mass murderers in this country, are you calling out
to them too, actually?
Did you care about if Buffalo, New York,
that too,
black people were gunned down while they were shopping? Did you care about what happened to Mother Emanuel Church? See, Chris,
it actually does apply to young white men.
One at a time. Nina, go ahead.
The difference between Liz and I.
Hold on, Liz. Go ahead.
Okay, the difference is that I'm not here caping for a political party or an ideology.
Right.
What I am saying that happened to that young woman is wrong, and I don't care what her racial or ethnic identity is. I am also saying that we as a nation must care about the fix and stop racializing where it should not be. If you want to talk about the real history of racial hatred and degradation in this country, then we can do that dance, Liz. But this is not the time to do that dance, because we are, again, cheapening and taking away from what happened to her and how we help people who are in mental health crisis, not letting anybody off the hook for cold-blooded murder.
You know what,
Chris, the second part of your question,
go ahead, Liz. Give me a quick take on the second part. What's the fix?
The second part is the brokenness of the nuclear family, the brokenness of the black family, the fact that black fathers are absent, that young black men turn to drugs and gangs.
How dare
and by the way,
well, the family, I think the family in general you can point to. I don't know that one race over the other works.
This is also true for the murderer who killed the two young children, a white man. Will you listen to what I'm saying? I literally said the broken nuclear family, both black families and white families. That murderer.
You singled out black families, but if you're saying all families, it's a different point.
It's especially evident in the black community, but it is also true that when fathers are absent, that young men are more likely to commit.
I'll put you guys on a text thread.
Put us together.
If
you're open to that, Liz, I'm open to it.
I'll put you together. Liz is open to conversation.
Let's do it.
Nina's open to conversation. That's why we're all here. It's not an easy conversation to have, but it's an important conversation to have. We'll keep having it.
Again, with Liz Wheeler putting it in there. Oh, the problem is the broken nuclear family. But then putting in there, it's particularly with black fathers and black families, right? So we can look at data and we can talk about reasons, but that's not the narrative that Liz Wheeler wants to get. It's a fundamental racist assertion that sets off a lot of mental dominoes, which is, well, we all know about black fathers, right? I mean, we've seen the movies and we've seen the news stories that focus on it. So we all understand that black fathers are bad fathers. And then she's like, well, no, I mean also white people, right? But you only need to get a couple of drops of that in the punch for it to do its insidious work. And I will give props to Liz Wheeler for being good at this. I think she snuck in a few of those throughout here, but it's fundamentally disingenuous. So the idea of Chris Cuomo having Nina Turner on here to talk to Liz Wheeler in a sort of I think Nina Turner's like, hey, let's exchange numbers. We'll talk about it. You're not going to convince Liz Wheeler. Anyway, it's a lot to chew on. I want to know what you think. I mean, I go back and forth on Chris Cuomo. I feel like he's a well-intentioned guy. He does know what he's talking about. He'll give people like Liz Wheeler a little pushback. He doesn't really stick. I mean, I think it also feels like Chris Cuomo knows what's good for ratings. So not too much pushback. He's pretty careful not to pick a side, which I think is problematic in and of itself. I don't know. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments.